Hey guys, welcome to the start of a new series where I'm going to show you exactly how I go about doing a new design build planning phase using SketchUp. I've shown you my SketchUp models in multiple of my live streams. I mentioned in the past that I was going to possibly do some kind of how-to videos around it, so I'm finally getting around to it. It's been a busy year, so I haven't been getting around to as much as I wanted, but I am going to show you guys how this works. We're going to go through building an entire home plan, house plan that I have for it. We're going to go through building the entire thing in SketchUp and then how I budget for it based on that SketchUp model that we do. So basically the way I use SketchUp is I build it exactly like I will in real life. I design it with every single 2x4, 2x6, every sheet good, everything, finished materials. Usually I'll go ahead and do some of the like siding and I'll do drywall and all that stuff. I won't usually go so in depth for the purposes of doing a budget because I don't really need to. The purposes of doing the model for a budget is basically to get exact measurements and quantities and all that kind of stuff for materials in your budget. But if you did want to go a step further, and maybe we will with this one, we'll see what I end up deciding. But you could go all the way to, completely finishing out the model home in the program, just like you would in real life with all the appliances, everything. And then you could even render it. I don't know how to do that, but I know you can go online and hire people online to do renderings for you from your 3D models. Very cheap, like $5-10 probably to do one model, do a handful of renderings for one model. But that just basically a rendering is where you take the 3D model and then you create images of it that look more realistic than the model does in the actual program. Anyways, before we jump into SketchUp, let me show you what we're doing. So this was a plan that we bought years ago as a possible spec build. We have not built it to date. So I am pulling this one out. We're looking at whether or not we want to build this. So I need to do a budget for it. That's really the first step, right? Once you've picked out a plan, I'll do a separate video where I kind of talk about how I decide on floor plans and design, architectural designs and that kind of stuff for a home, and how I would go about that, right? Depending on what your purpose is for the project. This one was kind of picked out to be more of a spec home or a short-term rental here in the mountains. So the idea is to have multiple exit strategies, right? And so we wanted to build it in a way where we could go either way with it. It might also work as a long-term rental. Probably not, though. It really depends more on the finishes. But also because we're planning on building this with a basement, it doesn't necessarily have to be, but that's the way we're going to design it with this series. It's going to be rather large as a long-term rental. I don't know that you'd really be able to get the rent that you need to in order to afford a mortgage on something like this, even with just covering the cost to build, right? Without that GC fee, if you're building this for yourself. So we bought this online. You can see the website right there. I assume they're still around. Like I said, this was a few years ago, I think now at this point. So I don't know. You guys are, well, there's a lot of different websites that all kind of are set up the same way, and they have just tons and tons of house plans on them. A lot of times I like to just scroll through there. I'll find floor plans that I like, and then kind of take those, tweak them a little bit, and do my own design based on those. Using the exact same method you're going to see today. It's just in this case, today in this series, in this case, I just happen to have a full set of plans here. But you could do basically the exact same process with just a floor plan, right? Like this. You wouldn't have as much detail as this, but on all those floor plan websites, they do show you basically a screenshot of the floor plan. You won't have exact measurements for everything, but you can guess, and you're kind of designing it yourself anyways, so you may want to change some of the dimensions. Anyway, I can already see with this floor plan, there's going to be a couple things that I want to change. So that's the way it goes. This has not been engineered yet. All I have are the architectural plans. If you don't know the difference, that's really a whole separate video. But architectural plans are basically your floor plan, and your elevations and that kind of stuff, the design of the home. The actual engineering of the structural integrity calculations and all of that are done by an engineer. The engineer will design everything based on, and usually they can make small modifications to the plans, whatever you want. So for example, this wall here on the right side of the home here of the layout, I don't like this little bump out. It may look nicer, but when it comes to building like a spec or an investment property, aka a rental, little things like this can really add up in terms of extra cost. So I don't think I'm going to do that, but we'll get around to that. So I just wanted to show you the plan we're doing. It's basically just a little farmhouse design. I picked this one because it was very simple. The roof is very simple, right? You don't have a lot of weird things. There is something I want to change on the roof too, but I'll cover that later. I like the design of it. It was, kind of a farmhouse style. Big windows take advantage of mountain views. You have a covered front door, which is really important here in the mountains where we have snow for half the year. It's got the attached garage, gable over the garage. I like having the gable over the garage door because that way you're not having snow and rain shed directly onto your vehicles as you're going in and out of the garage. And in the winter, if you have snow, if you're using a metal roof, for example, and you have snow shedding off your roof, you really don't want it all just dumping right there in front of your garage door, where then you're gonna have to clear it every time you want to go in or out of the garage. So having a gable here is going to really minimize the amount of weather effect on that driveway into the garage. So you always want to try and have a gable over your garage door if you live in an environment like that. What other, the floor plan, let me see. So I'll just say it's a pretty basic set of plans. I mean, there's a lot of extra details in here that a lot of these house plan websites want to throw in there, just to make it look like you're getting more value, I guess. I don't know. And that's the roof stuff. So you can see it's got kind of a hip here that turns into the gable for the garage. I would rather, I think, just run this out and have a gable here on the end and then run the gable out for the garage off of that. Yeah, I don't know if that would work actually. So we'll consider that more later when we get to the roof stuff. It would be nice to have it that way, but honestly, looking at it now, the hip probably makes the most sense, because you would really need, I mean, you could do it with the gable coming out as well. Maybe we'll try it, see how it looks if I change my mind. That's the nice thing about doing this in SketchUp first as a 3D model, when you're just determining what design and plans you want to use. You can make your tweaks, see how it looks. If you don't like how something ends up looking, you can change it very easily, and you haven't really put any money into it or anything, right? Just a little bit of time doing the work here. So I like using SketchUp models so that I can really plan ahead, identify areas in the build that might cause problems for us down the road, maybe with our framing or whatever, so I can get an idea of the solution for those problems before we ever even get to them in the field, right? So that's another reason that I like building in SketchUp before I ever go and actually build something for real. So here's the floor plan. It's just a main floor plan, but like I mentioned before, we're going to be doing this with a basement. So I am going to have to design the basement floor plan myself. Sometimes you'll get plans that include a basement floor plan, but as you can see here, this is the foundation plan, and all they did was they copied the exact same floor plan from above, essentially, down below. Just turning like this is your utility and closet turned into one big area, but the walls more or less follow kind of where your walls are above. I don't know that I like this setup that much. I think we're going to change it a little bit. I have some ideas. We'll get into that more, but for today, what we're going to do, I'm going to kind of give you guys an introduction into SketchUp and how I use it. The plan here is to, I already had, yep, there we go. So that when you first open SketchUp, this is usually the window that's going to pop up, right? From here, I just click on simple with inches. If you want to do meters, obviously you can click meters. You could do architectural. I believe this doesn't have like the blue for the sky in the background of the model. And I think it's just more, I've used the architectural before. for just about everything, the simple works fine. And then just obviously you want to go with inches if you're dealing with inches, meters if you're dealing with metric. Ignore that. Okay, now 1 second. Let me get this sized right. Okay, that's better. Let's get rid of that. They do have little models of people that you can throw in there just for scale. It's kind of nice. Once I finish a model, sometimes I'll throw one of those little person models back in there just to get a sense of scale. And they have different ones that you can choose from. Not that it really matters, but anyways, they are nice for getting a sense of scale in the rooms after you've built everything in here. To actually see a person standing in the room really will help in a lot of cases. So as you can see, we're starting out here. We just have a big blank area, right? Now, if you're following along on your own system, in your own program doing this, you may not have this toolbar over here on the left side of the screen. That I think is on because I have it on normally. But to get that, I believe by default it's hidden if I remember correctly. View toolbars. Okay, we go to toolbars. Large tool set is what that one is. Okay, so you just click on large tool set. That gives you everything over here. And that's really the only thing that I remember needing to do for kind of initial setup when you first get in here, right? I just like having the large tool set available to me here. There is also, there are a couple other toolbars that are useful, but for the most part, 95% of the time, this has everything I'm going to use. So I would suggest opening that because we will use it a lot. Then over here on the right side of the screen, you do have the basic toolbar up here at the top as well, which you'll see a lot of the same things in the large tool set. So you really don't even need this toolbar up here. You can drop that one out if you want and just use this one. Whatever. I'm going to leave it on. Over here on the right side of the screen is where you kind of have your, I don't even know what you call them, your trays. Your tray windows, whatever. Most of this is not going to be important. The main ones that are going to be useful here, sometimes materials, but I tend to just paint things with a color that matches the material I want rather than actually identify materials because I don't need to do that for what I'm doing. 1 second, I need to sneeze. Okay, sorry about that. Where was I? The tags is really, components can be useful as well sometimes. That's a little more advanced and you really don't need to use that to do the stuff that I do. I have used it before. It does come in handy sometimes when you're doing larger projects, but we may get into talking about that later on. Tags is really the only one that I'm going to use 99% of the time. This one and the entity info window, because this is where you're going to identify like a color or a group that you want to, a tag. Tags are basically groups that you're putting everything in. So we'll get into that as we get into the build. I'll kind of show you how I start using tags to keep different parts of the model labeled separately, and you can turn those parts on and off, the visibility of them on and off in the model here. So let's say you have an entire model of a home. I would set up a tag for foundation, a tag for framing, a tag for siding, a tag for the roof, a tag for doors and windows, all that kind of stuff, right? So if I just want to look at the foundation, I can turn everything else off and only have the foundation visible, and that way I can see everything I need to with the foundation, get my measurements, whatever it is, right? So you'll see kind of how that works. As far as your 3D space here, so what I do to look around, I hold down the mouse wheel, like my mouse, and if your mouse doesn't have this, I'm not sure. You'll have to look it up and see what the controls are. But for me, I just click the mouse wheel, the button. Most mouse wheels, if you can click them as a button. So I click and hold it down. It might be, if you have a middle mouse button, that would probably be the other option that I would try. But anyways, I just hold that mouse wheel button down, and then you can look around while you're holding it down by moving the mouse, right? You can also to pan left and right. So if you want to pan to the left or kind of strafe to the left, you can hold down shift while you press that mouse wheel button or the middle mouse button and move the mouse. And that way you'll be able to pan left and right, up and down. I think pan is the right term for that. I'm not an expert on this, guys. Don't feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you know what I'm saying. You can see clearly I'm moving left and right or up and down, and rather than turning left and right or looking up and looking down. Okay. So those are kind of the basic movements there of how you're going to control the camera view. And that's really everything you need to know. You also zoom in or out with the mouse wheel. We'll go into that a little bit more later, because the zoom in and out can be a little confusing at first. It depends what your mouse cursor is on. If your cursor is on a part of the model, then it'll zoom into that model. Like, it won't go past whatever your mouse is on. But if your mouse is just out in the open without anything, any part of the model under your mouse cursor, then you'll zoom way past your model, or, it'll zoom much further. That'll make more sense if you try it out. I just wanted to mention that because it can be a little confusing to people sometimes when their zoom seems to be acting differently than what they think it should be. As far as your axes, you do have the blue axis is your, I believe that's Z axis, right? It's the vertical space, so moving up and down. Then you have your green axis would be the Y axis, and the red axis would be the X axis, I believe. It's not really important that you label them X, Y, and Z. It doesn't matter. The point is, blue is your vertical up and down as far as our building area, right? The way we're constructing here. Green is moving from front to back, and then red axis is just moving left to right. You can obviously turn that all the way around and make this your front of the building on this side if you want, or even whatever, right? But I usually just keep it the way that you start out at, the orientation that you start out in, because if you go to camera up here, you can always go to a view. Let's say I want the front view. So I click that, it's going to go. So now I'm looking directly at the front. See, it's going to go to the front as with this orientation as the front, if that makes sense. So it's kind of something you need to know about. I think that pretty much covers it as far as all the basics in using SketchUp as a program. As we actually build the model, I'll mention hotkeys that I use, because I do use some hotkeys just to make things a little quicker. But you can always, every tool that I use is right here in the toolbar, so you can just find it and then click on it. And I'll also do that a lot. It's slower technically. If you're good at this, you should be using hotkeys for just about everything. I still will click on things over here sometimes because I can't remember all of the hotkeys. And so let's go ahead and get started on the foundation for this, shall we? So here's the foundation page from our plans. If you don't have an actual set of plans, you're just going off of a floor plan that you found online for free, right? You just found a picture of a floor plan and you're trying to build off of that. First, you need to figure out your basic measurements. What is your exterior dimensions, right? If you don't know the exact dimensions, you can guess. Most houses are built on like a 40-foot width, a 50-foot width. You could even go with a 20-foot width with a 40-foot length, or a 50-foot length if you want to go narrow and long. Things like that, right? You could go with a box that's a 40-foot by 40-foot. Whatever you want, but figure out kind of what your measurements are, what dimensions you want. If your floor plan has the dimensions on it, all the better. Most of the floor plans, the images that you can find of floor plans online, will have the general exterior measurements, right? It may not detail anything, like it may include a porch as part of your exterior measurement. Just guess, is that porch 6 or 8 feet based on what it looks like in relation to the rest of the floor plan? And you can kind of just go with that, right? Doesn't have to be exact. The point is, you're using the plan as a guide, because I'm using this as kind of a design build process. So I'm doing some of the design work myself in the front end, because I want to make sure that this project is designed in a way that's going to be efficient as far as cost and time. Okay, those are my two main concerns. When I'm planning a build, I'm trying to look for plans that are going to be efficient to build. I want it to be cheap, and I want it to be quick. Okay, because I'm usually building investments for myself. It's more important that those two priorities are met. The aesthetic of it, if it's a rental, if it's like a short-term rental, the aesthetic matters a lot more. But if you're just doing a standard long-term rental or mid-term rental, the aesthetic doesn't really matter, as long as it's a functional space that's clean and usable and people will like, right? If it's in the right area, location, right? Everybody knows that about real estate. So that's really the key. Once you have a good location, figure out how much space you need, and then just design a usable floor plan for that amount of space, right? So we're going to start with the foundation. Every build that I do in SketchUp, I want to start with the foundation, right? So let's start with our line tool, that's the pencil here, you can also just click L for line, and that'll bring up. So by the way, anytime you're in this, if you want to go back to just your cursor, your mouse cursor for selecting things, spacebar. Okay, that's your hotkey for mouse cursor. I never come up here and click the cursor button here, the select button. Just press spacebar and you're right back at your select cursor. So L takes us to the line tool. You'll see your cursor turns into a pencil. Now we need dimensions. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit on this. I'll try to make sure you guys can still see it okay as well. I think that works. You can't quite see. It looks like you guys won't be able to see the dimensions on the very left edge of the screen there. Maybe I can fix that. Hold on. Let's just bring that. Oops, if I can grab the edge of the window there. Okay, one second. I'm going to fix this for you guys so you can actually see what I'm looking at. Okay, there we go. So we do have the exterior dimensions. Now notice when you're looking at these dimensions, it's always important to notice where the dimensions are measuring from. If you're just looking at a floor plan from online, a picture of a floor plan that you found, it's probably not going to be obvious whether or not they're measuring to the exterior or the interior of the foundation. That's just kind of how it goes. If you do have an actual set of plans, then it's very important that you look and see where the measurements are actually going to, because they're going to be exact on their placement. Okay, or they should be. If you have any decent set of plans, all of these markers should be exact, identifying exterior. So in this case, this 61'6", so it's 61.5 feet, is measuring from the exterior of the foundation wall to the exterior of the foundation wall on the opposite side. So we know that this building, including the bump out here, because you can see that the 61'6" comes all the way out here and lines up with the exterior edge of the wall for that bump out. Now I already said we're not really gonna do the bump out. What I'm gonna do is bring this wall and this wall out to all be just one wall at the same distance out as that bump out. So we are still going to be going the 61.5 feet, and then it's just going to be a straight wall all the way down and then come back across the bottom. So I have that measurement. I want to start with the front corner of the house though. So I need to know what my measurement going to the back is. Now this says 48'10". So I want to look and see, is there anything that I want to change on that measurement right now, right off the bat, that I know I'm going to do differently? And the answer to that is yes, I think there is. The garage. The garage is too small. I want to make it a little bit bigger. We're going to deal with that once we get the foundation for the house done though. So we'll do the foundation for the house first. You could do the garage first or do the garage at the same time. I'll explain why I'm doing it this way. Well, I'll go ahead and tell you. The way I'm doing it this way is because the garage is not going to be at the same level as the rest of the house. I already mentioned this is going to be on a basement foundation. That basement foundation is going to be 5-6 feet at least below grade, right? Depending on how far I want to go down with the foundation. The garage foundation does not need to be 6 feet below grade. The footings in my area, frost depth is 36 inches. So that means my footings need to sit at 36 inches below grade. So I'm not going to do the garage foundation at the same depth as the house foundation. So I want to do the house first, and then I'm going to add the garage onto it. So our measurement for just the house from the exterior of the home's concrete foundation wall is going to be 26.5 feet to the back wall. Okay. We can see that here because it's called out. If it's not called out specifically, you can do some math using whatever measurements you do have on the plans. Try and just do some math and guesstimate more or less what that measurement will be, or just go with what you know you want it to be. Okay, that's enough. It's, if you know what size home you want, just figure out your dimensions, rough dimensions. You can kind of just determine the stuff for yourself, since you are more or less designing it yourself. What I would do is make these designs and then take it to my structural engineer, who would then develop a set of plans from my designs and with all the structural calculations and everything, right? Your engineer may not do all that. You may need to hire a draftsman or something like that to help you out, but that's just the way I do it, you know. So 26'6", and then we got 61'6". So we can go ahead and do those two measurements. Okay, so we're gonna start right here at the front corner. We're gonna come straight back, 21'6". Okay, now let me explain what I'm doing there. You'll notice down in the very bottom right corner, I don't want to move my cursor. Well, okay, I'm gonna move my cursor, but I'll show you down here in the bottom right corner where it says length, and then there you'll notice numbers in that space after it whenever you're creating something in here. So right now, because I'm creating a line, it's going to show me the length of that line. Now, currently it's showing like 235 feet because we're zoomed way out from where the axis origin is. If we zoom in a bit, now I'm down to like that line right there is about 20 feet, right? So we're back to about where we want to be. Now, the measurement we were looking for was 26'6", right? Did I do 21 before? I don't know. Anyways, 26.5 feet. So what I would do at this point, I just bring a line out anywhere along the axis that I want. So I want it to go straight back along that green axis, and that lets me know that it's going to be a straight line. So I'm going to then, once I have just a random length line drawn out here, I type in on my keyboard 26, and then I do the little, what's it called? The tilde or whatever it is for the foot notation. So 26 feet, and then just put 6. You can actually do 26.5 and then do the foot mark. It's important that you do the foot mark if you're putting in feet, because as I pointed out when we first created this new model, our base measurement is inches. So if we just put a number in there and don't tell it feet, inches, or anything, it's just a number, it's going to assume that it's inches. So if we want it to be specifically feet, in this case I'm doing 26.5 feet, I have to actually put in 26.5 and then do the foot mark notation so that it knows that it's feet, right? Then you can just hit enter and it'll do it. You can also do 26, so let me undo that. You can also, so I want to start right there at the origin, bring a line out, and then I'll type in 26 feet, and then you can put 6, and you don't have to do anything else after that. It'll assume that that 6 is inches, but you can also put the inches notation, the quotation mark, right, for inches notation, and it will use 26'6". But also, if you don't put it, just to show you, I'm not going to put the quote mark there as an inches notation. Just put 26 foot and then a 6, and it'll do 26'6". Now, the way to take measure, now it's gonna when you do that, it's gonna automatically keep going with another line, right? So we already know that in the back here we wanted to go 61'6", right? So I'm gonna do 61 foot and then 6. This time I'll do the quote mark just to show you it does the exact same thing. 61'6", and I feel like that was not right. That looks way bigger than it should be. Yeah, 61'6". Okay, it just looks off to me right now because we don't have the garage on the front, so it looked a lot longer than I was expecting. But and if you ever want to check measurement, so here's how you measure anything in your model. Hit the T for tape measure, right? Or you can just click it right here, tape measure tool. But I always just press T on the keyboard for tape measure. And then using that, you can actually measure things. So if I click right there, and then it'll pull out a line, right, for what I'm measuring. And so I just put it right there on the end. It has the little green circle there in the corner to let you know that it's connected to that corner. And that is 26'6". You can either look at the measurement right there where your tape measure cursor is, or once again, it'll show you the measurement down there in the bottom right corner of your screen. So we know that this is 26'6". That's what we wanted. And then let's check this one just to make sure we got the right measurement. We just want to go straight to the end. So put the green circle on there. That lets me know that it's connected to the end of that line. And it's 61'6". So that's exactly what we wanted. Press escape because it still has that connection there. Since I clicked at the beginning, I can hit escape just to cancel that. And now we're back to just the cursor. Again, press spacebar to go back to your select cursor, or L to go back to your line tool, the pencil tool. Now, our next measurement coming all the way down the side, like I said before, I want to do just a straight wall all the way down the side. So it does not give me a measurement and a measurement for all that, but it does give me measurement for this section, and this section. So I can add up all three of those measurements and it'll give me exactly what I need. So we have 13 and a half, 13 foot 10. Am I reading that right? Yeah, so 13, that's interesting. So let's do 13 and 13 is 26, right? So you got 26 feet plus another 6, so you're up to 32 feet. Now let's add in the rest of the inches, so you're at 32 foot 16 inches, which is going to give you 33 foot 6 inches, right? No, 33 foot 4 inches, sorry. So we should be total 33 foot 4 inches for that side of the structure. For the foundation wall. Remember, we're measuring out the foundation wall. So now I already forgot what I said. 33 foot 4, right? Now, when you're drawing a line here, you want to make sure you're following the axis that you want. So when I was going to see right there, okay, it looks like the line is coming straight towards me, right? On the same plane that we're in with the other lines. But notice how it turned blue. And you'll notice as you're moving a line around, it's not always a color. It's black when it's just going a random direction, right? So you can't really tell unless you move the camera around. You can't really tell what direction that's going. But it'll snap to a certain axis whenever you get to certain places. So you can see it just snap to the blue axis there. I can move the cursor a little bit around that and it's going to stay right on that axis. Same thing with the red axis, green axis. So that's important because right here, from my perspective, it looks like this is coming straight towards me to make a nice 90-degree angle for that corner of the building and then bring that wall towards us, right? But notice it's on the blue axis. Which axis is the blue axis? It's the vertical axis, our z-axis, if you want to call it that, right? It's our up and down. So that means, watch, if I move the camera angle, it's doing a blue line straight down from that corner. That's not what I wanted. I wanted to come forward with it to the front of the building. That is on the green axis. So if I just snap it to the green axis here, now I'm on the green axis. Now I just type in the measurement that I wanted, 33 foot 4, hit enter, and it's going to give me a line that is exactly that long on that axis. And now I got a perfect 90-degree angle in that corner. And I have the length of this side of the structure, of the foundation for the structure. Now, my next measurement is going to come across the front, obviously. Let me hit escape real quick just to disconnect that. And so it doesn't really give me an exact measurement. We can see here that from the outside of the foundation wall there to the outside of the foundation wall there is 10 foot, 10 foot, and 10 foot 4. So that's a really easy thing to add up. It's obviously 30 foot 4. But don't forget, we also need to add the 2 feet here because we bumped this whole wall out to the distance of this little bump out here. So let's add in the 2 feet there. So we have 32 feet 4 inches. Yep, let's go ahead and do that. I like that. 32 foot 4. So I'm going to click again on the green. When it turns green there, that means I'm on the end of the previous line. And then just drag it out on the red axis this time, because the red axis is the x-axis, the one coming across the front of the home that we want to stay parallel to. And then I already forgot the measurement, 32 foot 4, right? All right, now we got that. And then we come back over here. So we got our 32 foot 4 all the way across the front here. Now we need to move back. How much? Whoops, I didn't mean to move down. So that's going to be 3 foot. Okay, so it's right in here. I couldn't see it for a second. 3 foot 10 is our measurement from the outside of foundation on the front to the outside of foundation in this little alcove, if you want to call it that. So 3 foot 10, we can move back 3 foot 10 on the green axis, right? 3 foot 10. Hit enter, and we got our little alcove. Now, how far across do we need to go? Looks like right here from outside of foundation to the outside of foundation here, right? And that is the measurement we want, because we want to go from right here. That's where our line is up to right now, is right in that corner. We want to go from there over to all the way over to the outside of that corner. So that is going to be 7 foot 8. So these are actually a decent set of plans. They gave us pretty good measurements for everything. I believe that 7 foot 8 is going all the way to that exterior wall. It's actually a little hard to tell. It doesn't line up perfectly. I'm going to assume that it does though, and we'll see if this final measurement gets us to our starting point. If it does, then that means we got everything right. If our final measurement, when we do the last line across, doesn't finish at our starting point, we messed up somewhere, right? So a really quick, easy way to check and make sure you're doing things right is just where you finish. So 7'8". Let's go ahead and put that going across. 7'8", boom. And then we're gonna move back again. Okay, this time we're going just 3 feet. So let's do that. So green axis coming back. So in this case, I know that 3 feet is 36 inches. I can just type, instead of doing 3 and then the foot symbol, I can just go 36, and it knows that it's inches. So I just hit enter with the 36, and it's gonna give me 36 inches back. Now I'm gonna go ahead and see what this measurement is without actually making the line. I can just put my cursor on the origin where we started, and it'll tell me, because it's still hooked on to this corner where we just finished. It'll tell me that that measurement down there in the bottom right corner is 21'6". Is that what it's supposed to be? So I hit escape. I can come in here and I'm going to look. This says it is 21'8". So we're a little bit off somewhere. Did I miss something? I wonder. 21'8". And it's also completely possible that these plans are not 100% accurate. 7'8". So let's go back in the model, and I'm gonna see. Let's pull out our tape measure. So this should be 7'8". Yes. This one was the 32'4", right? That's what it should be. From outside to outside, you're gonna have 10, 10, 10. That's 30 plus 2, 32 plus the 4 inches, 32'4". So we're good there. Right, that was 32'4". Yeah, I don't. And then the only other 61'6". 61'6". Yep. So we did all of our measurements right. It just came out to be a little bit different. We're at 21'6" instead of 21'8", which is what the plans say it should have been. Trying to think if there's any other reason that would be. Nope. So it was just an error in the plans. This will happen, guys. When you're buying plans online, even when you're getting plans directly from an architect or a draftsman, they have errors sometimes. People make mistakes. It happens. We're all human. So 21'8" is not going to be our width there. So that actually shrinks the garage even more. I already mentioned it's a pretty small garage. I'm not happy about the width of it, but I think what we're going to do about the size of the garage is just make it deeper and extend the front of this out a little bit further. We could make it wider. If we did that, we would have to eat into something somewhere. So the floor plan has this little pantry area here in the front of the house. I'm not crazy about that to begin with. I don't like having a pantry that's separated from the kitchen. So that was actually the only thing I think on this set of plans that I wasn't crazy about. But with all the alternatives that were out there, I looked through, dozens of plans for the size that we wanted and the style that we wanted, looking at ones that were simple to build, like I mentioned before, with a simple roof line, all that sort of, nice kind of rectangular structure. Those things make them cheaper to build. So that's what I was looking for. If the pantry is the only issue I have with this floor plan, that's not too bad. So I tend to be pretty picky with my floor plans. I also don't know if I'm crazy about the stairs being right here on the entry from the garage down to the basement, but it's not that big of a deal for the way this floor plan is planning on being utilized. So let's get back to, what does it say here, I wonder? It says the exterior for the garage from one side to the other is 22'2". Okay, let's see if we get that. 22'2". And that's what it says here as well. It just didn't actually come out that way in the model. Oh, wait. Yeah, because that wall's not going to line up with that. So if it's an 8-inch, I'm assuming an 8-inch foundation wall. You could also go 10-inch. In some areas that would probably be required. Since I'm only doing, my plan with this is to only do like a partially buried basement. So essentially the bottom of the windows in the basement will be right at about grade level. Maybe slightly below. We may do a little bit of window well around them, but more or less I want them to be kind of close to grade. Just because that lets in a lot more light, gives people views, and it makes that basement a lot more valuable than if you buried the whole thing 8 feet into the ground, right? Yeah, let's just keep going with it. We'll stick with what we got. I'll have to determine, I guess for the garage, since I'm going to extend it out longer anyways, we can actually bump this wall over a little bit, and inside the garage you'll just have a little corner bump out from the pantry into that garage in the corner. I think that's fine. It probably won't even get in the way, so we can actually easily make this garage a little bit wider if we want, maybe add a foot or so. You just have to remember you do have this window that's in the front. Probably want to try and keep that window centered as far as the view from the outside. I think that's how they have it set up currently, is centered, right? Hard to tell with this. Maybe it's not exactly centered. Nope, they have it centered. Okay, 3'6" on each side. See, that would have to shrink, which means on the inside that window would not be centered anymore. So I don't know. We'll have to think about that. Yeah, let's figure that out when we get to the garage part though. So let's just go ahead and finish that wall across like I had it, and we will go ahead and continue from there. So I'm going to pull out my line tool by hitting L. I'm going to click on the one side and then drag or pull that over to the other side and click again. And now we have what is essentially our footprint, minus the garage, porch, and those kind of things. So now what we need to do is actually create our foundation wall from this. So what I'm going to do for that is use the offset tool. So I'm going to click offset over here, and you can just click on any one of the edges of this footprint, right? So any of the lines anywhere on any of the lines that we created, you just got to get it to show it. There we go. So when it has the red dot on there, that means it's connected to the line. So just click, and then you can see it's basically creating a copy of the shape that we made, but just offsetting it from the one that we originally made. So I already mentioned this foundation wall. We're going to plan for an 8-inch foundation wall. So just like we do with everything else, I'll start dragging it out, right? And in the direction that I want to go. And then I'll just type in 8 for 8 inches and hit enter. And now it gave me an offset of 8 inches. What I will then do is press spacebar to get my cursor, my select cursor. I click in anywhere on this interior section, it'll select it. You know it's selected because it'll have the blue dots all over it, or it'll be slightly shaded blue. I guess they look like little dots if you look closely. So you select it and then just hit delete, and it's going to delete that whole interior section. So now we have what is essentially a cross section of our foundation wall. Now, in order to actually turn that into a foundation wall, we're actually going to wait on the, well, let me think. Because it's kind of easy to do the footings beforehand. So let me do this. Our footings, and if you don't know what size your footings are going to be, go back to your plans if you have plans, and it'll show you, for example, right here, the footings 2 foot minimum for, and you can look, this is, this particular one here that it's showing us is 223. So find 223 in here. So you can see like 240, 240. So it's showing you where that cross section is. 240 is somewhere else over here in the details. But we're looking for the 223, right? Here's a 230 is our side walls. So let's find 230 over here because the side walls are kind of our basic walls. So let's take a look. 230 must be down here. So there's our 230, 2 foot minimum. In fact, if you look at all of these details, all of them except for our interior footings are going to be 2 foot minimum. So as far as design, and again, your engineer, when you get these plans engineered, the engineer will specify exactly what those widths need to be. But for the purposes of planning, we're just going to go ahead and go with what it says the minimum is, which is 2 feet. So since we're using an 8-inch foundation wall, if you have a 2 foot footing under that and that 8-inch foundation wall is centered on the footing, that means your footing is going to stick out 8 inches on either side of your wall, right? So we'll go back to our model, and I'm going to use, now here's another way to use the tape measure tool. You can use the tape measure tool to mark reference lines, okay? So let's zoom in here. I know that my footing is going to extend 8 inches out from both sides of this foundation wall here, right? Now, right now it's not a wall. It's essentially a cross section of the wall. It's the base of the wall. It's where the base of and our wall is going to go up from there, okay? But before we do that, I want to go ahead and mark out where our footing is going to be so I can easily and quickly draw the footing under it after we finish the wall here. So I'm going to use the tape measure tool. I'm going to get the red dot on one line of the wall there, and then I'm going to pull it out. Right now I just need to go out 8 inches, so I'll hit 8 on the red axis. Make sure you're going out on the red axis there, as we can see by the arrow. Type in 8 and then press enter, and we now have a reference line. This is not part of the model, and you can tell by the way that it's a dotted line. That means that that's not a physical line, it's just a visual marker for you, okay? So we'll do the same thing on the other side. On the red axis, go out 8, press enter, and we have our reference line again. So I'm going to do the same thing all the way around for this. In order to get our reference lines for the top of footing, make sure I'm on the green axis for doing this back wall. Then we come over to this side. Again, we want to be on the red axis, 8, 8, okay, and then we just do the front. So I'll be right back. I'm going to finish this up real quick, and I'll return. Okay, there we go. So as I mentioned, this isn't really necessary to do all this, and it kind of looks like a mess right now. You just have a bunch of dotted lines all over the place. But this will make it easier for us to draw the footing in just a second. So before we do the footing, I want to go ahead and finish off this foundation wall, as far as just getting the bulk of it into the model, right? So we're going to press P. P is the push-pull mode, which is right here if you're over here on the sidebar. So what you do with that, once you select an object that you, well, not even an object, we've created, I guess it's an object, but it's a two-dimensional object, right? At this time, we need to make this three-dimensional. We need to pull that wall all the way up to the height that we want. So we just put the cursor on it with our push-pull selected. You know it's on there because the whole thing gets shaded a little bit blue. Click on it, and now, as you can see, we can push or pull it in either direction to make a 3D object from our two-dimensional layout, okay? Now, at this point, we need to determine what the height of our basement wall is going to be. You could go with an 8-foot wall. I would recommend going with at least a 9-foot wall, 9-foot ceiling in a basement, if you have the budget for it. It really makes the basement way more livable, feels way more comfortable, and just will get you a higher value on that home. It's well worth the extra cost, in my opinion, but that's a personal decision for your budget. But if you can, I would go with a 9-foot ceiling. 10-foot ceilings are really nice, but they can often feel a little excessive. Your excavation at that point is going to be getting pretty deep probably. So I feel like a 9-foot ceiling for a basement is a nice sweet spot for most homes. Unless you're just going luxury, then 10-foot ceiling is probably what you actually want, right? Maybe even higher than 10 foot if you're putting a basketball court in the basement or something, I don't know. But 9 or 10 foot is typically where the range that I would stick in for basements. You could go 8 foot though if you're really just going for kind of the bare minimum. So in order to make this a 9-foot wall, we know that our slab is going to sit on top of the footings. Our slab is going to be 4 inches thick. That is also identified in the plans. I don't remember where. You can look around and find it in your own plans if you want. But it is identified in the plan. Some that they will always tell you what the design for the slab is, especially on engineered plans, but even architectural plans will almost always have somewhere where it says a 4-inch slab or a 5-inch slab. It's almost always going to be a 4-inch slab for a basement slab. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I know that this plan called for a 4-inch slab. Even if it called for something else, I would probably go ahead and go with the 4-inch slab anyways, knowing that my engineer is going to be okay with that and would probably recommend that anyways, right? So knowing that we're going to have the 4-inch slab, if we want to have a 9-foot ceiling height on top of that slab, then we need to go 9'4", right, to account for the slab height. Because our ceiling trusses, well, floor trusses for the floor above, which creates our ceiling for the basement, is going to rest right on top of this foundation wall. Now it's actually going to sit on top of a pressure treated plate, sill plate, that goes all the way on top of the foundation wall, and then you put your trusses on top of that. So technically there's another 1.5 inches there. However, you're going to have things like drywall for your ceiling that's going to take up another 1/2 inch or even 5/8 of an inch. So you could just go the full 9'4", or you can account for that plate height if you really wanted to. I think I'm going to go ahead and account for the plate height because I want to try and keep these studs under 8-foot studs. I mean, I guess they would be anyways, unless you're going with pre-cut studs. So if you wanted to stick with 8-foot pre-cut studs, then you probably want to go ahead and account for your sill plate when you're doing this measurement. So we're going to go up 9'4", right? So 9'4", and then to account for that sill plate, we're going to come back down 1.5 inches, right? So we'll come down and then type in 1.5, hit enter, and it'll move it down 1.5 inches. So our total height for this foundation wall is going to be 9'2.5". Okay. So just using our tape measure tool there to do that. Now we have our foundation wall, but as you can see, when we click on it, it's going to select individual parts of that wall, either the face or the lines that, what do you call that? Where two faces come together. My geometry was never my strong point. I was better at algebra. Vertices, I think is the right term for it. Anyways, where the two planes meet, right? The line there, you could select that. You can select a face, whatever you want, right? But we want to make this all one model so that if we click on it, it selects everything that is part of this foundation wall. So what I'm going to do is triple click on the model. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. If you click 3 times really quick, if you just click twice, it will select whatever you're clicking on and then anything that's touching what you're clicking on, which in this case are just the individual vertices, the edges of that plane, because those are separate in the model right now, right? You can select the face or you can select the edge. So if we double click on the face, it'll select the edges and the face for that particular thing. If we triple click, it will select everything that's touching what I clicked on that is not already grouped with something else in the model. So what I mean by that is once we have everything selected here, we can right click and we can make group. Okay. Now, as you can see, everything just turned solid white, and you can now see this blue outline box all the way around the whole foundation wall. If I click off of it or hit escape to click off of it, and then click it again, anywhere, if we click anywhere on that foundation wall, it's going to select the entire foundation wall. Now, let's say I want to go back in there and edit one specific part of that foundation wall. You just double click on it, and now you're editing inside the foundation wall, and I can once again click on any part of that foundation wall that I want to edit, right? Let's say I wanted to come in here. You can use the line tool. Let's put a window in. This is not at all where it should be to be a window, but we're just, as an example, I can draw that window on there. Then I can use the push-pull tool to, oh, wait, we got to select it first. So you notice this was still selected on the exterior, but I wanted to push-pull on the inside the lines that I just drew. So what you need to do is use your select tool, click on that section, or you can just hit escape so that nothing is selected. And then when you're using the push-pull tool, oops, let me go back into the model. Oh, I drew that on the outside of, no, it's there. Okay. Now it'll just simply push-pull whatever I have the cursor over. But because this was already selected, when I do push-pull, it's only going to push-pull that, even if I click. So let me select that again. Even if I clicked way out here where I'm not clicking on any part of the model, it's still going to push-pull that because that's what was selected, right? So I want to push-pull the window that I just created. I'm going to select it, press P for the push-pull tool, and then I'm going to push it all the way in to where you see it turn kind of that grayish blue there. That means you've pushed it in as far as you can go because it's not going to allow you to go past a certain point. I'm sorry, it will allow you to go past. You can see I can go past it and it'll create the extrusion go in the other direction. But it will kind of snap to this plane here on the other side of the wall. And what that is going to do, so if I click on it when it looks like that, when it says on face and it turned blue like that. Oh, it didn't work. Okay, I thought it was going to. Hold on. There we go. It has to be kind of, when it was kind of white and blue like that, it does kind of this shimmer effect on it or something. I don't know what you call it. But anyways, and then you click, all it did was actually delete that section that I was push pulling, right? So now we have a window cut out in our foundation wall. Now I can click back out, press escape to get out of that. So now it'll select the whole foundation wall again as one unit, but now we have that we were able to go inside there, edit it by double clicking on it, and then edit specific parts of it. We can add a window. We could make these walls longer or shorter or whatever we want to, right? So let me back up. I don't actually want to put a window there. I don't think, I'm not sure yet because we haven't gotten that far, but I don't think I'm going to want a window that shape and size right there. So now we have all that done. We've made this a group. Let's talk about tags. So at this point, we can create a tag for our foundation wall, right? So to do that, we're going to click this little plus icon here, the add tag button, and then it's going to be flashing, right? So you can backspace to remove the word tag and type in whatever you want to label this tag as. So I'm going to label it foundation wall. Okay. Now currently it's set to visible. That's by default, right? But I can click on that eye, the little eye icon next to foundation wall there in our tags. If I click on that, then it's going to remove it. But notice nothing happens because I have not assigned that tag to the actual model of the foundation wall. So once I've created the tag, I'm just going to come up here in the entity info window and see how it says tag right here at the top, the first drop down menu. Currently it says untagged. You just click on that and it'll show all the different tags that you've created in there. Just right now it only shows foundation wall because that's the only one we've created. You click on the one that you want. Now, because we had this selected and then selected the tag for it, that foundation wall is going to be given that tag of foundation wall. So now when I click on the eye, it disappears because I don't want to look at it. You click it again so that the eye is visible and your model will be visible for whatever you have tagged in the model with that specific tag. You also have these colors over here. I'll get into this later. I always just set this to white though, because of the way that I use things in SketchUp. So I have everything set to white because later on I'm going to set specific colors for materials. So like this thing, I guess I'll go ahead and show you how that's done. The foundation wall is going to be made of concrete, right? This is a poured concrete wall. So if I click on this little box here with that's half blue, half white, I'll be able to select different colors. This is called paint, right? You're choosing a paint for, so since this is going to be concrete, and right now these are just the ones that it put in here based on, remember when we initially started the model, it had that little picture of a person down in there. That person had these colors that were being utilized in that picture of the person. So these were automatically created when we started the new model. But this is essentially the color of concrete. It's a light gray, right? So it's close enough for me. So I would, and if what I usually do is I actually come in here, edit them. You can change the name of it to concrete, and you can even adjust. Wow, I cannot spell. Or cannot type, I should say, but you can adjust the color of it using any one, color wheel, HLS, HSB, RGB, whatever. Adjust the color to whatever you want, but light gray works well for concrete, so we're just gonna hit OK. Now it's gray like that, right? Let's say I just want it to be white again. Then I click this little button here with the three tags, and you'll notice it goes from white to colors, okay? When it's colors like that, that means you have colors turned off because you would click on it to get the color by tag, right? No, it's using the tag colors because I changed the tag colors to white. That's why I changed tag colors to white, because if I want everything to just look white, the basic model appearance, then I click that on, but I'll click that off anytime I want to actually see the different material colors, essentially. Now you can actually select, if you have a picture of concrete saved on your computer, you can come in here, edit. I think there was a way to do a picture. I don't remember. Oh, there it was. Edit, use texture image, right? And this will allow you to select an image from your computer that will then, it will give that image as the paint color. So you can basically do an image of concrete, bring it in here, and then this wall will actually look like concrete. We may do that later, but for now, we're really just building the model. None of this matters that much. So we're just going to turn all that off, not worry about it. I'm going to click out of, usually if you just click out in the open space, it'll click or unselect whatever you have selected. You can also just hit escape to deselect it. Now if you click and drag the mouse, if you drag it to the left, it'll select anything that is that has even just part of it inside that selection area. So because all of these reference lines were in, part of them was inside that selection area, it selected them. If you drag to the right, notice it does not do that. When you drag to the right, it will only select objects in the model that are completely within the selection area. So the foundation wall is completely within the selection area right now, and it selected it, but it did not select the reference lines because the reference lines are actually infinite, and so it's impossible to completely select them within the selection area. So in order to get the reference lines, you just drag to the left, and you can easily select those, hit delete, because, oh, but we don't want to do that yet. But I'm just showing you how to select and delete stuff a little ahead of time. But we want to take those reference lines now, and we're going to use those to create our footing. So the footing is going to come out from the bottom of the foundation wall, right? So we're going to adjust our view, our angle to be down here at the bottom. I'm going to select our line tool again by pressing L, and I'm going to start just anywhere, really. It doesn't matter. We can start down here, we can start up here, whatever. So let's start down here. This is going to be the top of our footing, and we're just going to do the outline of it right now. So just like we did for the foundation wall, I'm going to use our reference lines, and just it'll snap to any of these intersections of our reference lines that I want to snap to if I get close to it. And then I just click to make our line, and I'll just keep going around to all the points where I know that I want the top of our footing to be. Okay, and then I probably should have done the other one first. It wouldn't matter. So now I know you can't really see it right now because when I did the tag colors and all that, it changed the reference lines to white. Now, so I click that off. Now we can actually see, you know what, just because we don't need, let me do this real quick. Oh, that's not what I want. Why is it doing that? I want to go to my selection cursor. Okay. For some reason that was not working. Let me go ahead and change this back to white, or I mean, no paint for now. We'll do all the paint stuff later at the end. I usually don't worry about any of that until we have the model actually built, and then I start wanting to, getting a more visual look at what it looks like. I'll start adding different material colors and that sort of thing. So we're going to leave it like that for now, and then we're going to turn this back. No, we're going to leave this off so that we can easily see our reference lines again. Now I'm going to, oops, I clicked on that. So I clicked out here so that I didn't have that selected anymore. Click the L key for line tool, and now we're going to do the inside of the footings, the inside perimeter. We're going to follow it all the way around. Very easy, quick to do. And I think you guys probably know at this point what's coming next, because once we have that done, we're basically just doing the exact same thing we did for the foundation wall. So we're going to finish that line. You know it's finished, that it connected to the starting point, because it's no longer giving me a line, a continuation of the line to do. It automatically deselected. So now we're going to hit spacebar to go back to our selection cursor. We're going to select this interior portion because we don't want that. So we select it and then hit delete to get rid of it. Now we're going to select our push-pull tool, and by pushing P on the keyboard, and we're going to pull that down. Now, if you don't know how deep your foot, or the depth of your footings there, the height of the footings, if you will, if you don't know what those are, go look it up in the plans or talk to a local engineer, figure out what's usually done in your area. These plans, just like we used for the width of the footings, it also says that the height of the footings should be a minimum of 1 foot. I will tell you from experience, that's pretty standard, 1 foot height for footings. So we're going to stick with that. You may need something different than that, but in a lot of cases, that's going to be kind of the standard thing to use. So I go ahead and type in 12 for 12 inches, hit enter, and it's going to go ahead and do that for me at 12 inches. We can check it by hitting T for our tape measure and throw the tape measure on there, and it is 1 foot from top to bottom of that footing. Now, just like we did before, this footing is still not created as a group, right? We can select all the individual parts. So let's triple click on the footing. Notice it didn't select anything else because this is the only stuff we've created so far that is not already in a group. It does not count reference lines from the tape measure. So we triple click, it selects all the footing. We right click on it, and then we come here and make a group. And there we go. So now we've got our footing done. We want to go ahead and create a tag for footing. So let's do that. Wow, that's not how you spell footing. I'm going to go ahead and make this white. Again, it doesn't matter right now, but just because I will end up doing that later, I might as well do it now. So now we have our footing tag. We need to assign the footing tag to our newly created footing. So I'm going to select the footing, come up here, and we select footing. Excuse me. So now that the footing is assigned the footing tag, if we wanted to, we can turn that off. We can turn off our foundation wall. We have nothing left except for our reference lines. So I can select all the reference lines at once by clicking and dragging with the select tool. Click and drag to the left to just select anything that I touch with that selection area. Since the other two parts of the model, the footings and the foundation wall, are hidden right now, it won't select any of those. So we can just easily select all of the reference lines, hit delete, gets rid of those because we don't need them anymore. We've created our footing, and there we go. We now have our foundation wall with a footing under it for the home. The only thing really left to do at this point, there really are two things, but there's only one thing left that we're actually going to get around to doing right now, and that's going to be the garage foundation, okay? Now, the easiest way to do this, let's see. If we want to add the garage foundation onto this now that it's already built, what I would probably do is go ahead and do the line tool again like we did before. Let's figure out, let's just do the garage the way that it shows on the plans with the width that it shows, which is 22 foot 2 from exterior to exterior. Although I don't think that's actually going to be right. Probably not. So, yeah, let's go ahead and do that width. So we had 21 foot 6 for the interior width. The garage is only going to have a 6 foot wall. It's not going to be an 8 foot thick wall like we did for the basement foundation. The garage foundation, it's basically a stem wall. 6 foot should work fine. 6 foot, 6-inch thick foundation should work fine. Maybe, depending on your exact design criteria, you may need 8-inch. I don't know. I know the engineers here will typically call for a 6-inch wall for just a garage. So for a stem wall for a garage. So we're going to do that. So our interior space, maybe that's where they're getting the extra 2 inches, huh? No, because it's showing right here. It's going from the house exterior wall to exterior wall. So I don't know where it's getting the extra 2 inches there. But anyways, because really it would be extra 4 inches too, going from the 8-inch wall to the 6-inch wall, because you have 6 inches on both sides. So you're gaining a total of 4 inches there. Okay, let's go back to our model. I'm basically just going to model this out the way that I want it to be. So we're going to come forward. Okay, well, here's how I'm going to figure this out. Because in my area, I have to have 576 square feet at minimum for a garage. And that's measuring by the exterior dimensions. So if we have exterior dimensions, maybe we just go with the 22 foot 2. I don't know. No, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to figure this out by marking our point 6 inches in from here, right? Because we want to try and line it up with this wall is the idea here. So we're going to do 6 inches. But see, and that's why they have it set up differently in the plans, I think. So let's cancel that. We're going to go the full 8 inches. So 8, put a reference line right there. And then, yeah, we need to measure to that. So I'm going to select on, now if I selected this corner, it's going to measure a direct line over. But if I select somewhere along that edge, instead of selecting the corner, now it'll measure a distance out from that edge rather than a direct line to wherever I'm going, right? So I want to stay on the red axis so I know it's coming straight out. And then I want to hook it on, see how it made a little X there? It stays the same size even when I zoom in, but it made a little X right there where my cursor is, where the two reference lines meet. There we go. It snapped onto that other reference line. So now I know that measurement from one side to the other is 22 foot 2. Okay. And now I understand where that 2 inches is coming from, because it is the 2-inch difference in thickness between this wall and the wall that we're connecting to it. Makes total sense. I just wasn't thinking about it before. So yes, that makes sense. So that's essentially where we want our exterior wall to finish for this. So now we have our width is 22 foot 8, right? If we click it on that edge, bring it out to here, it's going to tell me 22 foot 2. Okay, I had the wrong measurement there. 22 foot 2. Let's just go 22 feet then, because that's going to make the math a lot easier. So what I want to do is go 576 is the minimum square footage for garage where I live. So let's do 576 and then divided by 22, because that's one of our dimensions, the width of the garage. So that means in order to meet that 576 square feet, we need to come out 26 feet at least. Now, because let me see. So if we do 22 times 26, it's going to be just shy of what we actually need. So what I would realistically do in this case is go 22 by 27 for a garage here. What am I doing? That is not, I don't know. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention when I was typing in, but it would be 22 times 27. Boom, 594. We easily meet the requirement for a garage. So we're going to come out 27 foot along this wall over here. This wall will be a little bit shorter because of the corner of the house that we're bumping into. So let's come back in here, pull out the line tool, and I'm going to pull a line on the green axis so that I know it's coming straight out from the house. And we're going to go, what did I say? 27 feet, right? So I put 27 and then the foot notation, and it gives me a line 27 feet out. Now I'm going to come across this way, and it was across 22 feet and then 2 inches, right? So I type in 22, the foot mark, and then 2 for 2 inches, hit enter. It's going to bring me straight across. And then that, if we follow the green axis straight back, should land us right on our reference line that we marked for where we wanted to finish, and it does. Excellent. So now what I'm going to do in order to create this foundation wall for the garage, because we're not going to just follow this around and close it off. It's actually utilizing the foundation wall of the house as the foundation wall for the garage as well. So in order to get the shape of the garage that we want here, I'm just going to continue with our line straight across here, bring it straight down. Oh, what was our measurement for that? I don't actually know. So I'm going to hit escape because I don't know that measurement. But I do know that this measurement here, I guess I could have just looked in. So we know that this is 27. We can look down in the bottom right corner to see we want to go -6, right? So we're going to go 26, type in 26.5, 26 and a half feet, which would, sorry, I forgot to put the foot mark, so it did inches. I see it did a little 26 and a half inch line. That's not what I wanted. So I hit Control Z to undo. We're going to come back over here. This line is actually not where I wanted to come out from anyways, and I need to draw a line coming over. So first, we're going to click back here where I originally started the line, come over 6 inches. So I type in 6, hit enter, it gives me 6 inches. Then we're going to come out this way, and we need to come 26.5 feet. So I type that in, we come out 26.5 feet. Then I need to come over this way. That's 21 foot 8, but -6 inches. So 21 foot 2 on the red axis. And there we go. Hit enter. It gives us the exact length that we need. And then this will give us, so we follow the green axis, right? So that way we know the line is straight, and it should finish. I didn't do this line right, the one that we did before right there, so I'll have to redo that. But we want to finish it right there on the edge of that foundation wall. It will be, and it should be 2 inches in from the corner, because we're doing a 6-inch wall butting into an 8-inch wall. So we're getting, well, really it's a face of a wall, but you know what I'm saying. Now we kind of messed up because there's a little piece of a line here, so it's kind of hard to see, but there we go. You can see I was able to select, now that we have a line that we butted into a line that was already existing, it split that line into 2 different pieces. So now we can just select the piece we didn't want, hit delete, and that's no longer there. Okay. And that was just because when I made this line originally, I accidentally went all the way to the corner, not thinking about what I was actually doing, because we only wanted 6 inches. but I went all the way to the corner, which was 8 inches. So it left a 2-inch length of line right there that we didn't need. So that's why I selected that and deleted it at the end of there. So now we have that. I'm going to do a push pull. Frost depth on this garage foundation is going to be 36 inches, right? 1 foot of that, 12 inches of that is going to be made up by footing. So that leaves me with 2 feet, 24 inches of foundation wall, stem wall for the garage that needs to be below grade. But I also want some of that concrete wall to come above grade. I'm going to just go a full foot above grade for a garage. I find that works really well. It's a nice even number. 12 inches gives you plenty above grade for your garage, both on the outside, but also on the inside. You have a nice high concrete lip along all the walls, so that if you choose to wash out your garage with the hose or something, you're not really, and you have drywall on the walls, you're not too concerned about splashing water up onto the drywall, because you have a full, it won't be a full 12 inches because you're gonna have your slab there as well. No, sorry, the slab will be set 12 inches down. Typically, I mean, you can set it where you want to, but anyway, so what we're going to do here for our foundation wall, we need the 2 feet plus a foot above grade. That gives us 3 feet for our foundation wall. So I'm going to pull it down 36 inches. And then what I'm going to do is press spacebar to get my select tool, and then triple click on it, right? And we want to make that a group, because that is our garage foundation wall. So make group, and I'm going to go ahead and tag that as foundation wall. I know it's for the garage. You could make it a separate tag if you want. I don't need to. I'm fine with it being the same tag. I'm going to go ahead and select this reference line because I don't need that anymore. So I'll just delete that. Now this foundation wall, we do not want it to be way up here. As I mentioned earlier, my plan is to have roughly half of this foundation wall above grade. Okay. Because that's going to give us, I forget the term for it. There's a term for it, but that's going to give us basement windows that actually have a view. Okay, where you can see stuff out of the, rather than just looking directly into a window well. It's also going to let in a lot more natural light. It's going to improve the value of the home slightly. It improves the desirability of the home, which makes it easier to sell, which means you can generally get a higher price for it, right? So in that way, it will improve the value of the home. But that means that this garage is going to sit lower, because the garage needs to drive out at grade level, right? So we're going to now press M for the move tool. We haven't used this one yet. This is a new tool. Where is it over here? Right here on our toolbar, move tool. It's got the 4 little arrows in a cross shape pointing out in each direction. So with that tool, we can click anywhere on what we want to move. So see, right now, nothing is selected. If you have something selected, let's say I selected that foundation wall and I'm using the move tool, even if I click on this garage foundation wall that we just made, it's going to move the house foundation wall because that's what was selected. So hit escape to deselect everything, or you can usually just click off in empty space and it'll deselect whatever you have selected. So now with nothing selected, I'm going to hit M for the move tool. When I move the cursor over the garage foundation wall, now it's going to highlight that garage foundation wall as the selected object. I just click on it. You can click on a corner of it. You can click on the face of it like I did here, whatever you want, right? Now we can move that around. But again, it'll snap to certain axes. So you see, if I start moving in the downward direction, it's snapped onto the blue axis, which is our vertical axis. So that's the one we want to be snapped to. And now I can move this down however far I want. So it's hard to say exactly without knowing what my site is going to look like, what the grade of my lot that I'm building on would look like. So this is all theoretical right now. You could move this way down, right? If you're assuming you're going to have a lot of the basement foundation exposed above grade, or you can have it really close to the same height as the basement foundation wall. And that's going to give you the effect of having it, having more of the basement buried below grade, right? Because essentially this garage is determining where your grade is going to be, since you need to drive into it from grade. So makes sense, right? So we're going to snap onto the blue axis. I just want to move it down 2 feet. I think 2 feet, let's try that, 24 inches. So I type in 24, hit enter. I think that's going to work pretty good, because remember, we do have 1 foot of this garage foundation wall. The garage stem wall is going to be above the slab, above grade. So if we drop a reference line 12 inches down, that's roughly the height that our top of slab is going to be. So from there, I really should have marked that there. But anyways, let's see how high that is, or how far down that is from the top of our foundation wall, which is because we're going to have to create stairs inside the garage that go from the slab of the garage up to the door that goes into the house, right? So I'm curious what that height is. 3 feet, that's going to be like 4 steps. Not a problem at all, right? We can easily fit 4 steps and a little landing for the door over into the back of this garage here. And you're still going to have plenty, because we pulled the garage out 27 feet, you're still going to have plenty of room for your vehicles. So that's not a real concern there. Gives you a nice reference. That means that our grade then is also going to be 3 feet down on the exterior. So if we pull a line down out here, you know, you can pull some reference lines down and you'll kind of have an idea of where your grade sits at on the outside of the house. Now that actually looks a little bit higher than what I probably want. So with that in mind, why don't we go ahead and select this? And I want to see, this is what's great about having the 3D model in SketchUp to go off of. I can very quickly and easily make design choices like how high or what the difference in elevation between the house foundation and the garage foundation should be based on what I want, right? So I'm going to move it down another 12 inches. That now means that our grade is going to be 4 feet below top of foundation wall. So if I come down 48 inches, type in 48, hit enter, it gives me a new reference line. That looks better because remember our windows are going to be, you know, like that. So that means roughly half of the window will be exposed above grade. Now we could even drop that a little bit more if we want. Sorry, let me undo that. You could drop that a little bit lower if we wanted even more of this foundation. So another reason I like having, you know, a few feet of foundation wall above grade for the home is because I live in a high elevation environment. So that means we get a lot of snow, right? We're up in the mountains. In the winter, you could easily have 3 or 4 feet of snow up against your house there. And the idea is to try and keep as much of that snow as possible off of your siding, right? You don't want it piling up to the point where it's piled up against your siding on the house. That's going to create advanced decay of your siding. So in the interest of longevity for our building materials, we want concrete to be the material that the snow piles up against more. Therefore, having exposed foundation for the first few feet of the wall, the exterior walls of the home, is going to be a lot better in a high snow environment than having just, you know, 6 to 8 inches of foundation wall above grade, and then your framing begins and you have siding and all that, right? That's all going to get piled up with snow in the winter, and it's not going to be great for the maintenance of your siding and trim and all that stuff. So that's another reason why I like having, other than the fact that we're doing a basement here with windows, we're going to have egress windows and we want to have nice views and all that because we're in the mountains. It's also has to do with the protection of the home from weather and environmental effects. Also, when rain or whatever, water coming off the roof splashes off the ground, it's going to be splashing up onto a concrete rather than your siding. So again, you're just improving the longevity of your siding and trim in that case. So I like having basement foundations that are not buried all the way to ground level. We want to leave, I would say for my area, typically at least 3 feet of foundation above grade would be ideal. 3 or 4 feet, I think, works best. If you could go 5 feet, that's probably even better, right? So with that in mind, why don't we go ahead and we're going to move this down another foot. Okay, and you'll notice it automatically snapped to a foot down because it noticed SketchUp is a pretty smart program. It noticed that I had been using that already, the 12-inch increments, and it automatically snapped it down 12 inches before I even typed in the 12, right? But I went ahead and did that just to make sure, typed in 12, hit enter, it moved it down again. So now we know that our final grade should be somewhere around 60 inches down, which is 5 feet. That puts it right about there. That should be enough room for our windows. We may do a little 1 foot window well type thing around the base of each window, but that should be pretty good for our egress windows there. It may actually be closer to like 2 feet of window well, but whatever, it's going to be very minimal and you'll still have a view out of there, is kind of the point there, right? So I'm happy with that. Let's go ahead and leave that there. Okay, so the only thing that's left to do at this point, let's go ahead and get rid of these reference lines. We don't need any of those. We just need to do our footing for the garage, right? Obviously the garage stem wall needs to footing as well. This footing is not going to be as deep because we don't need as much wall. It's not going to be as deep as the house footing was. So But again, it's going to be a 24-inch wide footing, so we need to come out 8 inches on both sides. So I'm just going to do reference lines, 8 inches. Oh, I still have another reference line up here. I meant to get rid of it. Let's get rid of that as well. Okay. So now I'm going to very quickly create some reference lines for us around here so we can easily draw out our footing. So 8 on the green axis. Over here, 8 on the red axis. And then what I'm actually going to do this time, so we'll do it a little bit differently. I'm going to hit the line tool. Let's start here. We're going to come out to here, there, and then I need to get a reference line there, I guess. Yeah, okay. Let's get a reference line for the end here. So what I'm going to do is just click on one of the edges out here because it's in the same plane as where I want to be. And then I'm going to pull that line all the way back to this edge because that's the edge that I want to line up with, right? So now I have a reference line there. That line, that gives me a corner with the other reference line that I already had. So now I'll press L to get my line tool again. And now we can draw that line right to that corner. And then we're going to bring that over 24. Right, because it's 24-inch wide footing. We're going to bring that up. That's 26'6", and then we subtract 8 inches from that. It's going to give us 25'10". So 25'10" brings that line to there. We're going to bring it over to here. So that measurement, we look at the bottom right corner, is 20'4". We need to subtract 8 inches from that. So we're going to go 19'8". Oops, 19'8". There we go. That gives us our line. Now we bring it, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and bring a line across from right there. So I hit escape so that it wasn't giving me the continuation of that line anymore. I'm going to start a new line at that corner, bring it out 24 inches along the red axis, and then I'm bringing that straight back to there. So we now have a complete item. We press P for push-pull. We're going to pull that down 12 inches for the height of our footing. And there we go. Now I press spacebar, get the select tool, triple click on the footing and make group. And we're going to tag this as footing. And there we go. So now we just kind of come out here. We can select our reference lines and delete them now because we don't need those anymore. And we have our foundation essentially complete. Now this is not really a complete foundation because we will still have, most likely, in fact, I'm certain we will have, with a layout this size, you're going to have some interior footings, okay? Interior footings are going to be footings that come across the interior of your layout, and these are going to be used to support load-bearing walls in your basement, right? So any load-bearing wall that you have in your basement, in other words, a wall of the basement that is supporting floor joists above it, it could be center of the floor joist, or it might be the ends of the floor joist. But they're most likely, especially with a basement that goes this far across, you could span this entire basement here using probably like floor trusses, right? What is that, 32 feet? Yeah, you could do a 32-foot floor truss. It'd probably be a 24-inch truss. You know, you could span the whole thing with that, and then you wouldn't have any load-bearing walls on the interior. It's a pretty expensive way to go about flooring this home. So the cheaper way to do it, you pour a couple interior footings, you build some load-bearing walls on top of that will go across this way, probably one like right there, and then you could do one right about there, right? Those will carry load from the joist downward so that the span of the joist is then shortened to, let's say, only half of this distance, right? So you have like a 15 or a 12-foot span for your joist. Now you can go with something much smaller, like a 12-inch eye joist. Will work just fine for that in most cases. So you can go to that and save yourself a lot of money on the design of your floor system, right? But in order to do that, you will have some, like I was saying, you will have some floor, some interior footings in here that you're going to also have to pour as part of the foundation. But in order to know where those footings are going to be, oh, I still have one more reference line there. In order to know where those are going to be, we need to know where our load-bearing walls are. And we're not going to know that until we frame our floor system for the main floor, which will tell us where we need supporting walls below that, and then that will more or less inform what our layout is going to be for the basement. So we're going to get to all of that next time. For now, this will at least show you more or less what we're doing for a foundation. One last thing we could do here, though, that would probably make a lot of sense. Let's go ahead and put our slabs in. So slab, right now, I didn't do the, okay, let's go ahead and bring the slab all the way out. So I just did a rectangle. I hit R for the rectangle tool, did a rectangle. We do have a little pop out here, so I'm going to hit L for the line tool, pull that down and connect it there. Now, if I hide foundation wall, you can see I cut out a little section of that. So hit the select tool. I'm going to delete that. Why did it not? Okay, we're going to select those lines, delete those two. There we go. Now we can show the foundation wall again. And then we're just going to use the push-pull. We're going to pull that up. Make sure it's going up and not down, right? It could go down, and you don't want to go down. You want to come up and then type in 4, hit enter for a 4-inch slab. Now, let's go ahead and triple click on that, make it a group. But we need to do something else here. So our garage door opening is 18 foot wide, right? So we need to find the center here. So here's a little trick you can do in SketchUp to find the center of any line, essentially. So we have this line that's designating the inside of our garage stem wall. Currently, we can measure it, and we can see that that's 21 foot 2, right? So we could just measure out half of that, which would be 10, 50. Well, anyways, you could do the math to figure that, or SketchUp automatically identifies the center point of any line that you're on, right? So if I put my cursor along this edge of the foundation wall, you can even see it before I even get to it. You can see that little black circle shows up right around there in the middle. So it's showing me where the center point of that line that I'm on is. It's 10 foot 7. So I can come out here. I now have a reference point for the center. We're doing, what did I say? 18 foot. Yep. 18 foot garage door opening. So from that, I'm going to add, so we want to come halfway off of each side, right? So I'm going to mark a 9 foot, but I'm actually going to go 9 foot 1.5 inches because I'm going to have a piece of pressure treated board that comes down the side of that inside the opening for that garage door. So we're going to actually go 9 foot and then 1.5 inches, hit enter, and it's going to mark that. And then same thing on the other side. Now I could also just come 18 foot 3 off of this line. But I want to show you when you're doing like 1/2 of an inch or 1/4 inch or 1/8 of an inch, this is how you do the notation. So I'm going to pull the line out in the direction I want to go. And then I'm going to type in 9 foot, right? So I do 9 and then the tilde for the foot notation. Then I'm going to put in 1. And instead of doing 1.5 for 1.5 inches, I'm going to do 1 and then space, and then do a 1 divided by 2 for 1/2. So now it says 9 foot 1 space 1/2. That's going to be 1.5 inches. You could do 1 1/4, 1 1/8, whatever. As long as you put the space in there, it'll work. So now we just hit enter, and we got the same mark over here for 9 foot 1.5 inches out. So now what I want to do, we're going to hit spacebar to get our select tool, double click on the foundation wall for the garage because that's what we want to edit. I'm going to hit L for the line tool. You can see where our reference lines were, and I'm just going to draw a line across the face, the top face of that foundation wall, the stem wall, at each of our reference marks. Okay, so now I got the 2 lines there. Now I'm going to hit P for push pull, and we're just going to pull that down. We're going to go down 12 inches, right? Because that's what I said I want. Well, actually, I want 12 inches to be top of slab, so we go down 12 inches, and then I'm going to go down another 4 inches for our slab thickness. Okay, now when I come out of that, we're gonna hit escape to get out of there. I don't need these reference lines anymore, so we're gonna get rid of those. We have our slab, which we didn't pull up 4 inches yet, right? No, I feel like I did. Oh yeah, because I put it on top of the footing, which was not where we want the garage slab to be. So I'm gonna select it, I'm gonna hit M for move, and we're gonna go ahead and turn the camera here so I can see one of the front corners. I'm going to pull that up. Actually, I'm not going to move from the corner. I'm going to move from this front edge of the slab, and I'm going to pull that up so that it matches that bottom edge or the top edge of that little cutout we just made in the stem wall. And then I'm going to click just anywhere on the slab and move it up another up, up on the blue axis. Hold on. I gotta get the blue axis here. Where is it? Why is it not going up? Sometimes just adjusting the camera angle will fix that. Yeah, it's not. Hold on. Let me zoom out a little bit. Just bring it straight up. How come it's not giving me the blue axis? I'm confused. It's not snapping to it. That's very strange. I get the red axis. I get the green axis. Now give me the blue axis. Yeah, it's struggling. So let me try if I turn my camera angle down like this. No. No, okay. We're going to grab the corner then, because sometimes it's a little bit funky when you're just grabbing an object out in the middle, right? Oh, I saw it. It did snap to the blue axis for a second there. Anyways, it's way easier if we just come in. Oh, how come that slab didn't go? Oh. No, it should have. Oh, because I did that cutout wrong. Or did I move the slab accidentally? I think I accidentally moved it. So we need to move that back into the corner. So if I select the corner of the slab and we just want to move it over, there we go. Yeah, okay, so I did make it the right size. It just had moved. Now what I'm going to do to move it up 4 inches, I'm just going to grab that corner up 4. So I start moving it up. I can see it's on the blue axis because I'm following the edge of that corner. So it's very easy for it to snap to that. And then I just type in 4, hit enter. It's now 4 inches above. So the bottom of the slab is hitting the top of that little cutout we made in this stem wall. And now for the slab, I'm going to hit spacebar, go select, double click on the slab so I can edit the slab. And I'm going to do the same thing we did with the cutout basically in the stem wall. I'm going to draw a line across right there following the edge of the stem wall. And I'm going to do the same thing over on this side. Using the line tool, I just draw the line straight across the face of that slab to line up with the cutout in the stem wall. And then I hit P for push pull, and you can see I can now pull just that section of the slab out so it leaves the corners along the sides in place. And I'm just going to pull that out to where it comes out to the face of the stem wall, the exterior face, and that is essentially your slab right there. Now we can do the same thing to get our slab for the basement. So press P, or sorry, we need our line tool, so L for line tool. We're just going to follow the walls of the basement all the way around, just adjusting your view as you need to so that you can see all of it. And I'm just clicking at each corner to draw a line. And then we finish back where we started, and it filled it all in with a solid 2-dimensional shape. And then we're going to hit P for push pull. Now, right now, this is sitting directly on, right, because we traced right on top of the footing. So this face that we just created is sitting right on top of the foundation. So we want to pull it up from there 4 inches. So we're going to come up, type in 4. It moves it up 4 inches. Now we can hit spacebar for our select tool. Now, remember, triple click on that and make group. Now we need to create a tag for slabs. So we're going to do that. Change this to white. It's just kind of a habit I created because that's the way that I like to do things. And then we're going to select this, and I can hold down shift and then click on the garage slab, and it's going to select both of those at the same time. And then I'll select slab from the tag, and now they are both labeled with the slab tag. Oops, slab tag. So I can click the eye next to slab, and those will disappear if I need to see below them. Okay, so now we have essentially our entire foundation. We're still missing interior footings. We'll have to figure those out at a later time. We did not bother going into any detail here with reinforcement of the foundation. You could model out all the rebar. It's a little more advanced. You're going to use tools like what are you going to use? So what I would typically use for something like that is I would to do a bend in rebar, because your rebar is going to bend through your corners, right? So to create rebar, what I would typically do is do a line, and then I would put a little curve at the end of that line. I think you use like the 2-point arc would probably work fine. So we come in here, we do, no, I want it to be, I don't think that's going on the axis that I want. Yeah, there we go. Now it's, I guess it doesn't really matter. Yeah, I do want to go that way actually. So let's do, just trying to get a rough, there's actually a better way to do this. I don't remember. I don't do the rebar very often. I don't model it because it takes a lot of time, and there's not really a point to, because in order to get a measurement for all my rebar for the build, when I'm trying to do my material count, I can just use my tape measure, measure this wall, measure this wall, measure all these walls, get lengths of everything, and then I just add up my total length, multiply it by the number of runs of rebar that I need, which is typically going to be, you know, 1 run every 16 inches vertically in the wall, and then your footing is usually going to have 3 runs spaced horizontally apart. So you're going to have times 3 for whatever the length of your total footing is, and then times, you know, divide by 16 to get the height, or divide the height of your foundation wall by 16 to get the number of rows that you're going to have of rebar, and then just multiply that by the total length of your foundation wall. And that's going to give you, and then you want to add, you know, I usually, when I'm adding up the total length of foundation wall, I'll add in an extra 4 feet at each corner for the overlaps. And then you'll usually, if you have a long wall that's more than 20 feet, right? So this is like 60 foot. So you're going to have 2 overlaps in the middle of this wall, right? It's basically divided into thirds. So you'll just add another couple feet for each overlap there. So I usually do that while I'm adding everything up, and I find that's easier than taking the time to actually model out all the individual pieces of rebar. If you want to see how that would look, go back to my live stream on, I think it's called A Guide to Foundations. And I didn't show how to make it. I kind of just showed you here. You can use these arc tools to do a 90-degree bend, and then just draw a line coming off each way. And then to make that into a bar, I use this circle tool. It draws a circle from the center point. So what you would do is find the center point of, oh man, I'm gonna have to do a whole nother video on how to do it. It's a little more advanced. But essentially, I guess I could show you real quick on one that doesn't have a bend on it. So let's do a line on the red axis. We come down here, we look at the end of it, right? We want to, if I remember right, I just do the circle off of that. We're going to do like a number 4 rebar is going to be 1/2 inch, right? So let's do 0.5 inch, type that in, hit enter. So now it gave us a little circle there. And then what you want to do, let's see if I can remember which tool it is. Extrude or follow me. I think that's what it is. So we want to select that circle, right? Let's see if I can remember how to do this right. And then we click on that tool, the follow me. I don't know if that was actually the right one, but let's try this. Okay, so click. Yeah, and then we just pull it down along that line. It'll follow that whole line. And if we had the bend in this, using the arc tool, if we drew a little bend in the line, then it would follow that bend exactly. So you can do your 90-degree turn, and then just click it again. And now we have, and you can actually come back now and delete the, if you can find it. If I didn't go all the way to the end, that line is still in the center. There you go. You can see the very point of it. Actually, I do have it selected. So you can select that line that you used as your, as kind of your guide, delete it. And now all that's left is this tube, which is representative of our rebar. Okay. So again, you would triple click on that, make group. That's now your piece of rebar. And then you can use that to line up inside of your footings where you would have the rebar inside your footings, right? If you're not sure about that, go check out that live stream I mentioned. I talk about everything regarding reinforcement for concrete foundations. So let's go ahead and delete that. We don't need that. But for today's purposes, we also don't have our windows placed yet, but we need to know where the bedrooms or what the layout of the rooms are going to be in the basement before we know where the windows are going to be. So we'll put the cutouts in. I showed you how to do that earlier. We'll do cutouts for the windows later, and get all that done. And then we'll also get our interior footings figured out once we know what the layout in the basement's going to be. So that's all stuff to look forward to for next time. And I think that is probably what we're going to do next time. We'll kind of figure out our basement layout. I'll show you how that works. Oh, I did mess up one other thing on here. I just realized there's supposed to be a bump out, and I didn't do that on the back wall because, oops, sorry. Here we go. So let's go to our foundation plan, actually, not the floor plan. So it shows on the foundation wall. I forgot that this plan had this. So it does show the foundation wall goes all the way across the back, but I just remembered if you look at our floor plan, that's actually a porch area under there. So we actually want our foundation wall to bump in right there for that porch area. And then I'm not going to do foundation wall on the exterior. You could do a stem wall right there for your porch to finish on top of. This is for more like a poured concrete porch. because we're going to be high up off the ground, like I was saying before, the main floor level is going to be about, what was it, 4 or 5 feet above grade. Doing a poured concrete porch there doesn't quite make as much sense to me. So I think what we would actually do there is a deck, and I would actually extend it further out. Why do I keep doing that? Sorry, I keep moving this down by pressing the mouse button. What I'm actually going to do is extend this out as a deck. We may come like 10 or 12 feet out from the house and have a nice big square deck that you can use. And we may even extend the roof out over it, have a gable roof that extends all the way out over it, so it's a completely covered deck. I think that would be really nice. We may not extend the roof out all the way because that is kind of expensive when you start adding all that up. But, sorry, I zoomed out a lot further than I meant to there. Anyways, so we do need to still cut that in. We'll do that next time because it's going to affect our layout, obviously. But I'm kind of out of time for today. I want to go ahead and finish this up. So we're going to call it quits here for today, guys. I know it was a long episode. This is basically a how-to on using SketchUp. I had to cover a lot of the basics in this one. Future episodes of this series, I'm going to try and keep to about an hour long. We'll just get as much done as we can in an hour, then I'll finish it and we'll pick up next time from there. So today was a little longer than that. I covered a lot of the basics of using SketchUp, getting started in it, the hotkeys and everything. I was calling out my hotkeys that I was using when I was pressing them. I won't do that as much in the future. I was just doing that a lot here in the beginning so that you guys kind of learn that I'm using them a lot and what they are, right? So hopefully you found this helpful. Let me know in the comments if I missed anything or if I kind of breezed over something that you would like more detail on how I did something. But we're going to get into a lot more detail on how to use SketchUp as we go and progress through this build as a virtual build. So hope you guys like it. Hopefully this is helpful to some of you out there that are wanting to learn how to do this. And once you learn it, SketchUp is a very easy program to use. It doesn't take that long to learn. And for people that are building like us, it's extremely helpful. I mean, I really can't overstate how useful it is for me in determining budgets and determining areas of the build that could cause complications for us down the road. I can identify those very early on. I can get a good idea of what the structure is going to look like once it's built. You know, you can make aesthetic decisions. It helps with design process. I mean, there's a lot of benefits to doing a build, especially with something like a house where you're spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on building this. You want to make sure you have everything planned out as best as possible. This is a tool that really lets you do that and plan things to the T. As you'll see through this entire process, I mean, we're able to get everything down. We can have measurements so that then when you're in the field actually building this on the job site, you can always reference. You can even pull this up on your phone. I pull it up on my phone when I'm on the job site, and I'll pull up measurements. I'll pull out my tape measure tool in the program on my phone and actually measure what I'm supposed to have for certain measurements. And that way, when I'm framing a house or setting up my concrete forms or whatever, I can double check everything. And it really is nice for that. So anyways, hopefully this is helpful. We'll get into it more, but I'm going to go ahead and stop the episode here. Yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Enjoy.